Hey, welcome to Learning Self-Reliance. My name is Roland, and today I wanted to talk about my everyday carry. Um, in my channel discussion, I talked about wanting to show some of my more deeper preps, and I would consider this one of those because when something goes wrong, it's going to be unexpected, and having something with you every day can really help you with that. I'm definitely a big fan of the philosophy of if you don't have it with you every day, then you're not really prepared for it. So that's something I try to do in my vehicles and on my person, within reason. But without further ado, let's get to the items. All right, here's the stuff I carry on my person on an everyday basis. Let's start off with the watch. How about that? So this is the Casio Pathfinder. I really, really like this watch. It's got a couple of really useful features. The first one is probably a barometer over here, and this is going to show a bit of the exact pressure that we've got going on and temperature and stuff like that. The temperature is of course affected by your arm, so if you really want the exact temperature, you should probably pop this off your arm to measure it properly. Let's go back to the main timer here, and up here is a graph, and this really isn't a good example of the graph, but the pressure is dropping down here, this little tick at the bottom, and it'll form a nice little graph throughout the day, and you can see that the pressure is changing, and you don't need to leave it on the barometer or anything for that. It'll just do that automatically. I've also got this compass here, which doesn't work super good indoors like right now, but yeah, that's pretty off. But I find the compass to be pretty useful. I used it a couple weeks ago when I went on a gem hunting trip and just wanted to double check myself with my directions, and that came in really useful to just confirm what I thought was north. And it's also got an altimeter, which is pretty nice. If you're usually I'll go hunting or something like that, and I might leave this on to just kind of see up and down what I've done throughout the day. But I think that'd be more useful if you were kind of an avid hiker or something like that. It's also around the inside here. It's got a solar panel on the inside of the face here, and it keeps itself charged. So it's got a little battery status down here at the bottom. Right now, the little tick is on H for high. So this guy is doing just fine, and I have never seen it go below that. Just go outside and I just wear it. I don't specifically charge it up or anything like that, but I've had this for about 2 years now, had no problems with it. It's a great watch. Next is my flashlight. I use this all the time, at least once a day, probably more than that though, but this is the Streamlight Stylus Pro, which is micro USB rechargeable. I'm a huge fan of micro USB. So many phones and stuff these days use micro USB to charge. I mean, pretty much Apple's the only exception to that. But this charges up on micro USB, and I've got those chargers all over the place in my car, in my house, at my work, everywhere. But this has got a lithium-ion battery inside. It's a proprietary battery, unfortunately, but I don't really know of a lithium-ion battery this shape that isn't proprietary, but this is just the battery that comes with it. I haven't had any issues with that. I think it's about 70 lumens. It's fairly bright. If you shine it close to an object like this or something, it'll shine in your eyes, so it's a bit too bright for stuff like that. But you can kind of angle it a little bit, and it'll work just fine. So it's bright enough to certainly navigate and walk around with. Maybe if you're shooting or something like that, maybe it would be good on a close-up target, but I don't know. Probably not that bright, and I'd rather have it mounted to the gun anyways. Next is my leather belt. This is just some leather belt. I think this was yeah, some John Deere, something like that. I just went and found a leather belt. One of the tricks to finding a leather belt, a lot of them will say real leather or something like that on it. That doesn't mean anything, right? A lot of the time it's just got a leather sheath around the inside. They've got some fabric on the inside that's actually doing the holding, the actual strength of the belt. One of the tricks to finding a real leather belt is to look for full grain leather, and that may change sometime in the future. You know, marketing gimmicks and stuff kind of ruins it for the consumer sometimes, but this I've had for probably 5 years, something like that now, and I really like it. I bring this with me on my mock bug outs and stuff like that, and I use this for stropping all the time, and it's been wonderful for that. You can see a couple places where I've nicked it a little bit when I'm stropping, but I've had this for years. Find it works just fine. Then on my belt, I keep my Leatherman. This is a Leatherman Surge. I really like this Leatherman. I carry it with me every day, and I especially like to bring it on bug outs. I picked this one for a couple of different reasons. The first one was it's got a nice knife, and it locks in. Every one of the features in here locks in. So it's got a good knife on it. It's got a good pair of scissors as well that lock as well. And scissors was something I really wanted because it really makes it a lot easier to slice small things, just threads hanging off or something like that, or maybe even a piece of paper or something like that. Trying to cut it with a knife is really difficult. It's got this serrated knife here. Really don't care for that. Hardly ever use it. Would love to replace it with another straight edge that I could then I could have two sharpened blades. It's got this saw on here, and it also comes with a diamond sharpening rod, which I use to maintain this. And I find the diamond sharpening rod does a good job. And then I'll strap this on my belt as well. So with these two, I can maintain quite a few knives, and I think it works pretty good. So this has got a little diamond edge on here. It would lock into this if I want to switch it out, but I'm not going to. And then it's got a file over here, and a bit of a different file back on this side over here. Sorry, mixed them up. But I really like the diamond file that comes with it. A couple of other reasons I picked the Surge. So we've got the knife, the scissors is really important. The diamond sharpening rod is really useful. The small saw is pretty useful for bushcraft if you want to get little notches and things like that cut out. Pliers, extremely useful. It's got replaceable teeth on this set of pliers here. This has also got a can opener, which is really useful for bushcraft, something like that. If you bring some cans with you, having the ability to open them up makes a big deal. Big difference. It's also got this double-sided bit here, Phillips head, and a flathead on both sides. I find that I just really only use those two. They work just fine. I don't really have any stuff that I do much smaller than that. It's got an awl here. This is really important for doing bushcraft stuff. I used it in one of my videos where I tried to make a buck saw. Trying to drill out little holes with a large knife or something like that is really difficult. So this guy does nice little holes and is awesome for that. And then it's got this little flathead here, which I guess you could kind of use as a pry bar, but I'm sure they didn't really mean for it to be used as that. And another little small flathead here. Really, really awesome Leatherman. This is definitely like the largest they offer, and it's pretty heavy duty. But I found that it was the only one that had the all scissors, knife, screwdrivers, and the diamond sharpening rod and stuff. The features that I really wanted on a bushcraft everyday carry combination for a Leatherman. This is the only one that did it. So it'd be nice if they had a lighter one, but that's the one I got for now. Also carry a lighter with me. I don't smoke, but I find that a lighter is extremely useful, not only for random birthday parties you go to. Nobody's ever got a lighter, but it's useful for burning off like threads that are coming off of clothing or something like that, sealing up some paracord, things like that. I also like to bring my, this is a 64 gig, tiny little thumb drive. This I just keep personal files on, things like that. Really useful if you've got you want to grab some video or a file from somebody, they can transfer it over. You can watch it later. But this is a USB 3 as well. Big fan of USB 3.0. Can't wait for USB-C. This is my phone. Yep, it's an old style flip phone. That's it. And I really like it. This is so much cheaper to own than a huge smartphone, things like that. And I get really frustrated and annoyed with tablets and smartphones and things like that because they just don't have the power of a desktop. I'd much rather just say, you know what, I'm going to do it later, hop on my desktop, which is nice and speedy, get it all done really fast, not struggle with some phone and some slow connection and all the money that it costs to be able to have, a $600 phone and then $100, $200 a month for the data plan and all that insanity. No, this phone cost me like $30 a month for the data, or for the voice and texts on it, and that's plenty enough for me. Great phone. And last but not least is my Caltech PF9. So I've just got this in some random leather case I've got, but I didn't pick anything particular out about this. It just works good enough. To be honest, this is something I could really improve on. Let's go ahead and unload this thing. I always keep it loaded, obviously. You should keep it loaded. But this is the Caltech PF9. I really like this gun. To be honest, I need to carry it more often than I do. That's one of the problems I've got, is I don't carry this with me every day. But my workplace, unfortunately, does not allow me to carry. And so that's pretty frustrating. But I should definitely be carrying this a lot more often. But when I do, it makes me feel a lot better. And it's got some 7-round magazines for it, and I really only carry one, and that's something I could improve with. But let's go ahead and toss this back in the sheath here. But really like this Caltech PF9. I could probably do an in-depth video or something like that, but I'm sure there's tons of those up talking about all the special features and stuff on this. But it's got a super long draw on it. You can see kind of how far forward the trigger is here. That's the safety. This doesn't have any safety, so the trigger has to go all the way back really slow. So anyways, that's what I try to carry. This is what I carry every day. The pistol, I need to improve upon that, but I really find that all this stuff is useful. I wouldn't say I use everything every day. Oh, one last thing, a couple of stuff in the wallet. So let me pull stuff out of my wallet here. Don't want to go flashing my ID and stuff on YouTube. But I try to carry, I got my concealed carry permit, stuff like that. So I got about 2 things in my wallet that are pretty important, non-standard wallet carry. But I've got this tiny little ferro rod here. So I found these on eBay. I think maybe it was on Amazon, but it's a tiny little ferro rod. And it's nice because it'll fit in the wallet. It weighs so little you really don't notice it, but pretty easy to drop. But the nice part about this is if this gets wet, it's not going to function anymore. But this does not care in the slightest. It'll work always, which is awesome. So I could probably just take my Leatherman on the back side of it, scrape this guy, get a fire going with it. But this, of course, is going to run out eventually, and it's small enough, you know, you could easily lose it. It's not attached to anything, stuff like that. It's just in the wallet. But this is a bit bigger, harder to lose, but this is a Fresnel lens. So I have a mock bug out video I did with one of these. This is a magnifying glass that is actually flat and flexible. So this is actually plastic. The coolest thing is that you can start a fire with this. So not only could you use it to, like, you know, read something tiny or look at something small, you know, you got like a sliver or something like that, you could use this and help out with that. It's not the best for that because it uses concentric circles. You can kind of hear me scraping them on those there. They provide a pretty decent magnification for looking at stuff, but what it really shines at, in my opinion, is being light, thin, flexible, and able to start a fire with it. Okay, so with this guy, if I find some metal can or something like that, I don't carry something like an Altoids tin every day. It's just too bulky. I mean, I've already got enough bulk here. I don't want to carry something like that as well. But this is able to start a fire on a sunny day, and that is just invaluable and awesome. I've also got on my shoes just some paracord for the shoelaces. So on my person, I've got 4 ways to start fire: ferro rod, magnifying glass, Fresnel lens, lighter, and then I've also got my paracord on my shoes. I mean, there's crazy stuff you could do. You know, this is a lithium battery, and it would be extremely dangerous, and you shouldn't do it. But you could puncture this, and it would light on fire if you did that. So that's extremely dangerous. Don't do that. But if in a pinch you're going to die, probably worth a shot, you know. But that's what I carry every day, and I find all of it to be really useful. Love it. All right, guys, I hope this gives you some ideas on what you could carry for yourself. I know a lot of people wouldn't carry like a flashlight or something like that, but I find it to be so useful. I know plenty of people that'll come over to me at work or something like that, and they say, "Hey, I know you got a flashlight," and I give it to them and they use it. Or my Leatherman. That's a huge request. A lot of the time people come ask me to borrow this, but I don't think that this is probably only a couple pounds of stuff. It's not super heavy, but I find it to be just invaluable in everyday life. Well, guys, I hope this video is informative. Please remember to like and subscribe.